And next up, we take a look at truly if NFTs as an asset class is safe. Is it going to be impacted by other market conditions? It's hard to tell. Right? When we look at the entire space, we see some things are correlated, others are not. And are NFTs an exception to that? Well, thankfully, these three are going to explore, is NFT going to be a safe haven for all of us in this room? We'll soon find out. So we have up on stage LK, Nikola, and Ori. Please put your hands together for them three.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikola, and I'm the co-founder of NFT France and Fire NFT, and I'll be moderating this panel today. So maybe we can start by introducing ourselves. So, or if you can tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get in this amazing space?
Sure. So so my name's Ohayon. I've been in the blockchain space, particularly of NFTs, for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was in banking, so working in capital markets. I eventually noticed that when NFTs came out, you had a new tool to work with securitization. So after about a 6-year career in banking, I quit, created an NFT marketplace called NFT Basel, ran that for about 2 years, and eventually had an opportunity to roll out, and now building 2 new infrastructure businesses within the blockchain space.
Hi guys, hi, I'm LK Shelley. Thanks for having me today. So I'm a managing partner of Affinity Ventures. So basically we do equity investment, but we started investing in blockchain or ICO since 2016. And about 22 years in tech and finance. So I always think that finance keep me aging and then innovation technology keep me young. 2017, I gave a tech talk about how blockchain democratized the creative industry. So it's good to see that NFT now is blooming and see how that in a good direction. And yeah, so basically, I published a paper, and we see that the crypto market obviously will continue, and hopefully will be a $10 trillion market. Not by a too far stretch. I think we did a pretty good analysis around it, so we'd be happy to talk about it, even during this bear market. Thank you.
Yeah. And me, I got in the space in the end of 2020, and I started by investing in cryptocurrencies related to NFTs, and then I switched and bought some good NFT projects with my associate Alois. And because we were investing and we were talking about NFTs all day long to the persons around us, we decided to create a media company called NFT France. And the goal of this media company is to educate the French community about NFTs. We are talking about projects, we are doing courses, so the goal is really like to educate people in France. And then because we get good return on investment with our personal investments. And basically what we did, we were able to raise money, and we created the first, let's say, investment firm in Paris that invests only in NFT collections. And we raised our money, we did the capital raise in the beginning of this year. So now, currently we are in a bear market, crypto bear market and NFT bear market. So I wanted to know, to get your opinions about the current situation. So are you bullish on NFTs, on the crypto? So LK, if you can start maybe by telling, what do you think of the current market?
I think, as you guys know, the whole bear market essentially is correlated to the whole macro. You look at Netflix, you look at Google just now, it dropped so much, right? So you can't imagine like crypto or NFT in general could continue to stay on. But so everything is kind of in parallel. But blockchain itself is in the infancy of this what you call the innovation S-curve. So it will take a while for it to stabilize. It's very interesting to see how art gaming and a lot of other use cases becomes the initial launch pad for NFT. But I guess most of you could imagine that maybe 5 years from now, there will be a much more interesting innovation coming out from the NFT space. So the market is down, and that is a good thing if you are here for the long term. I've gone through the cycle, right? I'm not the original OG, but there are people who's been here much longer. But I've gone through a couple of cycles, and I started in the sort of industry since 2000. So the Y2K phenomenon, right? So you can see that there's always a big drop, and then things will kind of come back again. Just from a personal experience, like I said, I did ICO, I accumulated a lot of ETH back in the day. What I have done really well last round is I was able to take profit because, I was kind of in the beginning of the cycle, I started dropping, and that was kind of my entry point. Obviously, I didn't have as much conviction as today, so I took the profit. But if I look back, I hold on, and then I could have been in a much better position. You can see that ETH had gone up so much better. So I think for you, if you are trying to take a more balanced approach, you want to stay on the project, continue building, and then in terms of like holding this asset, you want to make sure you take some profit, and then make sure maybe like also holding on some of it, and then an NFT itself is for me as a, you guys call it asset class. I think it's still very early to call it that way, but it's interesting to see how NFT create a lot of emotional attachment and personal attachment comparing to, like just a token, right? Because NFT is non-fungible, and token itself has less of that sort of like a personal attachment to it. So we see it like NFT is less of a instrument for a trader. There are a lot of traders I know in the market, but it's not efficient, it's not less of leverage. So comparing to like just kind of general cryptocurrency market, I think NFT could sustain a lot better, just from a quantitative perspective. And then there will be a lot more you can build on for the future. So I think stay on is one thing to look at it, and then go a little bit deeper to understand what exactly is the underlying technology, what is the underlying fundamental, rather than just aping in or FOMOing into projects. That's very important. Like, obviously I'm still a human. I like investing or just kind of buy into some projects, but not all projects. Like, I have a couple of NFT, like this is my profile picture. Not all the NFT could sustain sort of like that financial value, but some of that obviously could. And then, so you have to really value how you're gonna move forward, but just don't be scared, because you have to know what you're doing, and that way you can really hold your position much stronger, and then you will come out much better.
Totally. So I agree with you on the macro front, but I also think with NFTs, one of the probably the most dangerous factors with it was that it created such an emotional bond with people, that community, and that the fear of missing out in these big NFT drops created a lot of hype, which scared a lot of people in the space, but also showed that there was a lot of mass adoption potential with it. And we've only just touched the first wave of that adoption. I think long term with NFTs, you have to look at it not as much as an asset class on its own, but more as a tool to improve existing asset classes. And that's what you've seen already with the art space. You're starting to see it a lot in the fashion world now. NFTs will slowly, in my opinion, become the foundation on which we transact unique or individual assets versus a token which fractionalizes the ownership in something. So longer term, I think if you look more like micro on the NFT front, it's an infrastructure. It's not an asset class on its own. And when we start treating it as a technology versus a digital collectible or a wearable or anything on those lines, you open up the potential with NFTs a lot more. And that's when you start seeing it insulate itself a little bit more from the macroeconomic front, which has totally impacted the way like crypto and NFTs have been trading for sure.
If I may just add, yeah. So I mentioned I started in 2016, 17. Back then, no one talked about NFT. No one know even what is NFT. And then there was another acronym called LIFTY. That was more a common word, and no one talked about that either now. So NFT, to me, I'm still more like a techie, nerdy. I think of it is really like a technology whereby you could apply it for a variety of use cases, right? Financial or just purely like maybe applications, however you look at it. So I think, yeah, like giving an asset term to NFT is a little bit superficial, if you ask me. But yeah, so I agree with you. I think there's definitely going to be like a lot of evolution. Maybe in the next cycle, I don't think people will forget about NFT this term, but I think that people will pick up sort of like a new way of talking about it. And I don't write a lot, but I do write occasionally. I did a lot of research about the whole phenomenon last year. There were obviously the good side and the bad side. I discovered a lot of like scamming projects, like you said, like a lot of people do use the emotional attachment as a leverage to create a lot of empty projects and then rug pull and a lot of problems in the market. So yeah, it's early. I think that's kind of part of the beauty or I guess there's pros and cons in this space. If you're early, obviously, you take more risk and hopefully come out of it with a lot more rewards. But yeah, it's tricky. And I know you have a lot of interesting projects in terms of how to make more intrinsic value for the NFT. And yeah, it's not just about art, for sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that currently I have checked the on-chain data, and there's like 3.5 million persons who have NFTs today. So if you compare it with the persons who have access to the internet, which is 3.9 billion, we are still early on. And I think if you want to get this technology, as Ori said previously, like an infrastructure, really had to get and lower the barriers of entry, because currently it's complicated to buy an NFT. Like my mother, she has to install a MetaMask, she has to buy cryptocurrencies, then if she wants to secure her NFTs, she has to buy a ledger. So it's very complicated today, and the user experience is not well, but I think when we get lower barriers of entry, it will be like a complete evolution and shift for many sectors. So maybe we can talk a little bit about some use cases, if you want to tell us a little bit about this, Ori.
Yeah, sure. So this completely goes into the conversation of how NFTs will evolve out of this winter. And I'm a fundamental believer in NFTs being a fantastic method of transacting deed of ownership for physical or digital asset, but something that stores intrinsic value behind it. So I think you're starting to see it here, even in the booths outside. There are a lot of projects coming out which have figured out how to tie deed of ownership, whether it be to properties or physical clothing, or even memberships to parties or groups to the NFT. And now using that NFT is just a method of sending it over to someone. So as part of the conversation of lowering the barriers of entry, we have to learn, as builders of the whole space, you have to learn to make an NFT a part of your existing Web 2 infrastructure versus making Web 3 like a token-gated community that I really have to understand how to use, like Ethereum, MetaMask, the whole thing. We have to bring it to the masses. We don't have to make it more complicated than it already is. So I think over the next few years, the best way to do that is really integrate with Web 2. Find the smartest ways, the smartest partnerships to simplify the product we're working on and help upgrade the intrinsic value that we're storing behind these tokens versus relying on marketing and community to inflate that valuation on its own.
Yeah, so I hear the term Web3 a lot in this conference. I think things kind of evolved, not just NFT, now it's all Web3. I wrote some sort of, I did a thesis around semantic web, and back then Web 3.0 was sort of like a improvement and enhancement of adding intelligence to the web. Now you guys call it Web 2.0. So I agree a lot about how we shouldn't think there are divide between Web 2 and Web 3 because we're building on top of it. You can't actually have blockchain without internet at all, right? You need to have the original infrastructure. You're trying to improve the previous problem. And I think Web 3, which I'm not very comfortable of using it, this term, is really try to make the web a lot more accessible and a lot more interoperable. And that way, all these different sort of isolated, or you guys could call it centralized entities could interact with each other, and then you can take more control of your assets or your data and such stuff like that. So that's the important part of it. Is like I guess like the new technology, the blockchain, enable us to take back some of the control and then make it more secure and make it more open. And so that way, I think that is the important aspect of it, and then make it very usable. I hope that in the future, it's just a bit like, smartphone, right? Your grandma would be able to talk about it and use it without thinking about it. And that's, what we need to do. And then I think we could definitely use like some of the example how e-commerce conquer all this barrier to becomes like, higher penetration than the offline retail. And I think usability and security is part of creating trust is one of the things that I don't think this industry has been doing that well. There are lots of interesting innovation and all, but the mass the mass audience needs a lot more hand-holding. So I hope that we can remove that problem and then we can go to the next step. I think that would be the next bull cycle, and we'll see how that can evolve from there.
Yeah, and we were talking about mass adoption. So currently we are in the bear market. So what do you think? When we will have this, let's say, mass adoption, and when we will get out of this bear market, or what are the conditions that will help us to go out of this, let's say, bearish period of time?
So I think metaverses will be a massive part of this. I think what we've created with the first iteration of metaverses so far is basically an immersive website where I can interact and acquire things that are in front of me in a VR or AR setting. As we create better environments, better graphics, and a much more simple user interface, basically, where my grandma could jump in and figure it out, that's when you kind of open the doors to Web3 e-commerce. And that's when you start allowing people to walk into a virtual store, interact with an asset that's either physical or digital in nature, but really to experience it the same way they would experience it in a mall, and find a way to use an NFT to transact that asset. So the whole concept of phygital comes into play when your metaverses improve in quality. And in order for that to work, you need wallets to be much more simple to use, or if not just integrated. So it logs in with my Google, for example. That would be a much better tool than what we're currently working on. And then the ability to interact with an NFT in a metaverse where I don't have to use a native token, making it simpler for me to pay no matter what the methodology, also makes it much easier for the masses to adopt it, because not everyone's going to understand how to use a traditional metaverse.
Yeah, of course. And Alki, what do you think?
Yeah, so I spend a fair amount of time in the AI space. I have a sort of a pretty deep tech background. I used to work on a project with IBM Watson Research. So I spent a lot of time imagining the world with technology and making a lot of sort of sci-fi. Obviously, it will take a long time to get to the really futuristic phase. I feel like in the next 5 years, the mass adoption would be much more low tech. It would be like how our daily life can be improved with, cryptocurrencies or whatnot, right? Like how the tech can be integrated with our daily usage, just like, Apple Pay, very simple, and I think that would be the first entry point, and then using our wallet, and then be able to log into all the social media, and we can control, however, all the privacy and all that, so we can identify our identity, and then. Of course, I think the metaverse, the sort of like more advanced virtual reality will definitely come, but I wouldn't think that would be the next phase or the upcoming 5 years. It would definitely be there, but it wouldn't be the massive scale. Just like, I didn't imagine like, the sort of like a static JPEG, and then wrap it with the NFT becomes billions dollars of a market in 2021 last year. So it has to be very simple, and that's why NFT art becomes the launchpad. People can relate to it, people love it, and so I feel like it would be like payment, e-commerce, some of the identity sort of app usage that can help us to get to the next step.
Yeah, you said that to get the mass adoption, we'll use the technology in our daily life. So maybe if you can give us some examples or some interesting use cases that you have found out that seems very interesting, and they'll be like part of our daily life in the next few years. So.
Sure. Yeah, so with the first company I built up, we essentially tried to create an NFT marketplace that can transact physical assets. So we started working with physical canvases, sculptures, sports memorabilia, things that were like luxury higher end assets, and bringing them to the masses by decentralizing the source of being able to acquire them. So you don't need to have a membership with a big gallery, you don't need to be part of a community. You could basically go into an NFT marketplace and acquire the deed of ownership to a physical thing, and then have it shipped to you. And through that, started testing out using the NFT as a deed of ownership. So now coming out of like this winter, I fundamentally believe that there's going to be a lot more plays in the real estate world, basically trying to cut down the cost of real estate transaction, making it much faster, allowing people to pay with crypto. That's a massive opportunity, and I don't think anyone has really figured it out because there's so many high barriers of entry into the traditional real estate world. And the whole purpose of crypto is literally to break those walls down. With physical clothing, with sports memorabilia, with ticketing, with access to communities, memberships, all this stuff, like it's because we've made it so difficult in the Web2 ecosystem to break into these communities. I think if we learn to tokenize those titles, put it on chain, decentralize the marketplaces, you make it available to the masses, and you make it attractive enough that the masses want to break into it, because in Web2 they weren't able to get in. So I think, yeah, by using NFTs as a method of lowering barriers of entry, you make it much more enticing.
Yeah, actually, I like to invest in digital stuff, so real estate is not my strength. And so the idea of actually tokenizing the physical world properties and then fractionalize it so that it becomes a lot more accessible and investable is a very interesting direction. I don't know how it's, the overall sort of food chain, how it's going to break down the barrier, but that's something I'm looking into, I'm interested. But in terms of sort of like the real use cases, could be, again, super simple things like the loyalty program. If you travel with different airlines, I'm pretty sure you accumulate a lot of travel mileage points, and they're all in different whatever the alliances. Like, you can't really actually combine them. But I feel like moving forward, all these companies could sort of use the blockchain and then create a lot of incentive around it and make it very transparent, much easier to use. So in general, crypto created on top of like game theory, lots of like incentive layer, that aligns with a lot with the loyalty programs. And everyone loves points. You go to Starbucks, you go to everywhere, They like to give you reward points, loyalty programs. I think that could be a very interesting starting point, and then get people warmed up. People don't have to pay for it, right? They can accumulate whatever points on the blockchain without knowing it, and then they will start using it. And personally, I hope that there will be one startup who start doing this kind of loyalty program, working with all these different airlines and then all different retails, combine all these rewards in one place. So that way, for me, I travel a fair amount of time, so I love to see that kind of applications coming out soon.
Yeah, and I have another example. In France, we are the bigger producers, and we produce very good wines. And so what is interesting is now with the NFTs, if you have, let's say, a very rare wine, you can link it to an NFT, and basically you can now trade something that is hard to trade without using the NFT technology. So I think this is a very interesting example of linking the physical assets, and then by using the NFT technology, enable persons around the world to trade those physical assets. So I think this is another great example of how this technology can change many sectors. And then now, do you have some maybe NFT projects today that you are really excited about and that you think they'll be there in the near future? Because currently, like with the bear market, there is a lot of projects who are not doing well, but there are also many projects and many builders in the community. So if you can give some examples of the project that you are excited about.
Sure. I think it's actually quite funny as you watch people who attend like NFT NYC and NFT London, the crowd has changed over the last few years, and a lot of it at the very beginning used to be much more focused on collections and NFT drops, and in particular NFT London and even NFT NYC, you saw the heavy majority being entrepreneurs who were building infrastructure. So I think what's going to really come out of this, and the thing that excites me the most, is the people building businesses that function around Web 2 or Web 2.5, and are using blockchain as a method of improving what we already do on a daily basis. So real estate, e-commerce, fashion, ticketing, loyalty programs, all these things I think are going to be what comes out of this rough patch. And I think like by being entrepreneurs, by building this space out, we're the guys who are kind of like paving that road.
Yeah, so in general, I'm very good at picking direction, but in NFT space, I'm still trying to figure out that, right? It's a lot more like a robot trying to figure out using pattern recognition. NFT is a lot more nebulous. But in terms of projects, as I mentioned in 2021, there were just so many projects. So I personally invested in some, but interestingly, I didn't use a lot of fundamental research back in the day, right? Like, I mean, last year. But then there's one project I did actually invest in. And it checked quite a number of boxes, and I'm not shilling it. It's just something I find it very. It is still doing quite well. The project is the team behind it is the Beeple's team. He put together a new company, and then with another friends of his, and they have a pretty strong tech team, which I happen to know personally on a sort of like on a separate occasion, and then they obviously have a lot of connection with the brand, with Gucci, with a lot of like a real world retails, and they are able to really bridge the gap of digital and physical. To me, obviously, right now it's still very early, but the project is, the way I like it is that these kind of projects, they really go through the process of building, stay very low profile. Initially, they didn't even disclose who were the project owner, and then slowly people disclosed that he's part of the project, but he never really tried to use his influence to market the project. And then I was able to do the due diligence of the team because I know the tech team behind it. So they are able to really they've gone through some like security problems like hacks and all that, but they were able to recover it really fast. So I think I'm not sure there will be like very specific projects that I can mention it or whatever, but I'm just kind of want to say that it's important to when you look at all these projects, don't just look at how many people on the Discord or whatever, but really kind of go through a little bit more due diligence to see the tech side and also what is actually the fundamental value going forward, and then being able to bridge that digital and physical gap is not as easy as we just talk about it. You definitely have to have that kind of like a relationship, sales force, and business relationship and all that. And that way, this is not just a one-off project, but they will continue to build to the near future. So that's my take.
Yeah, I have seen, thank you for telling all this. I had seen like yesterday or 2 days ago, Instagram has announced that they will be launching NFT marketplace for people who have an account on Instagram. They'll be able to sell, create NFTs directly on the platform. So I wanted to get your opinion about these big social media companies. They are now all in the NFT space. So I wanted to know your opinion about these integrations. So Twitter integrated NFTs with the profile picture. Now Instagram is going all in. So if you could tell us a little bit about this, Ori.
Yeah, I think this exactly plays into our first point. This is all about bringing Web3 into Web2. Now Instagram has basically found a way to make it much more simple for an everyday user to jump into the NFT space without having to be a crypto native, right? So that was one of the biggest gaps. Is it's really tough to find a way to simplify the products enough that everyone else can use it. But by bringing it to all the users on TikTok, to Instagram, to Facebook, you've just amplified your potential user base exponentially, because now it's in your everyday life. There are significantly more users on Instagram than there are using a MetaMask, for example. So I think it's a huge step. Step two, I think what Meta's working on as well with metaverses, with VR, and I'm a massive fan of AR integrations. I think as you go into like the real world, then you'll slowly be able to interact with physical assets using a digital medium, and you gain access to all the retail data or historical data or pricing. But it's right in front of you, and you don't have to interact with technology like in an invasive manner in order to figure that out. You have huge potential, because now it's literally a part of your everyday life, and you don't have to move out of your typical path in order to reach that. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, so social media is quite tricky. I spent a lot of time and pain in investing in e-commerce. So I actually also invested in Pinterest, and that was 10 years ago, before they were raising sort of a late stage round, and they were able to actually monetize without telling you they're monetizing you. But they started experimenting, shopping and all that. It's very tricky. And so NFT obviously is very transactional based, right? It's not about displaying interesting images to you. They want you to transact. So it has a very similarity in that aspect. It's like, how do you actually integrate a shopping feature to social media? And I think Instagram is taking a initial start in it, but Facebook is going through a midlife crisis, so who knows? I personally don't think he's going in the right direction to a certain extent, but I think definitely, like, you look at some of these like social media like Pinterest and Instagram, and maybe like, of course, Twitter would be able to integrate NFT to a certain extent, like, you know, displaying your profile, identifying your identity, and make it more secure to interact with other social, the community member. I think that would be a very interesting step. But I prefer, and I hope they don't, to make it extremely like sales-oriented. That would turn off the users, and I think they need to be more careful how they roll it out, because we are in sort of like a crypto universe, so we love it, but a lot of people out there, they're still not very open to it. They have a lot of different like opinion idea about the industry, right? So things need to kind of evolve and roll out very carefully so that it doesn't get too much pushback. That would be kind of like backfire for the long run. So I think I prefer the bigger companies to do it more progressively.
Yeah. Thank you, LK. We have 5 minutes left, so maybe we can get some questions from the audience. So if anyone has a question.
It's like amazing weather today. I think it's it's like a blessing and a curse, because then we don't have enough audience. But then outside is beautiful, so I know, pretty sure everyone's gonna want to go out and such. But yeah, look, let us know what you guys think. You know, I do want to hear from some of you guys. You know, since you guys are in this space, how many artists in the audience? No? One? Okay. So, what else? Technical engineers, finance, okay. NFT traders, okay. Now we're talking. So, how about this? How many of you know what Web3 is? Wow. So everyone knows, okay. And what about metaverse? Wow, that's pretty cool. How many are depressed with this bear market? All right. And how many are you excited about the bear market? There you go. You guys will hear longer. Yeah, we have to be excited at the same time, confident. Then I think we will be able to sustain.
For sure. If we are not excited, like,
yeah, no,
it'll
exactly.
be hard to build everything
it would be
we are
very
working
depressing.
on currently.
Yeah. No questions.
We have one question.
So to be honest, it's a massive hurdle. Like getting a guy like me who's a Web3 native to break into Web2 is already a tough enough sale on its own. One of the biggest, I would say, like turn-offs for a Web2 native business is typically the fact that everything's totally decentralized. Like people get scared when they don't have control anymore. I think even it's at a certain point when things start developing, like, for example, if you were told you could buy a house over OpenSea, but there was no legitimate title transfer happening over the blockchain, you were kind of just paying the guy using the NFT. I don't think most of you would trust that transaction happening in a wholesome manner and you receiving a paper deed in that process. So there is a happy medium somewhere. I think to a certain extent we're a little bit extremist by saying everything is going to be completely decentralized. I don't see it working fully like that. There needs to be some form of regulatory body or even just a set of rules that protect us from fraud. We can't assume the world is going to work perfectly with trust. It doesn't function that way. So I think by focusing on a semi-centralized infrastructure, making it much more simple and affordable for Web2 natives to break into it, and being much more transparent about how the business functions, how you create attraction into this asset class, that's when we'll get adoption. So I think we're just on the cusp of it, to be honest. We've started developing strong infrastructure, but it works for a Web3 native. Now the trick is, how do we bring it to Web2 a little bit?
And I've seen a lot of, like, you know, especially NFT art project or collectibles, they start by like very young, you know, entrepreneurs, creators, which is great. But problem is some of them, they actually don't have experience managing large crowd. And then, you know, they use the decentralization as a way to launch the project, but at the same time, they kind of create a lot of chaotic scenario to actually continue managing the community. And then they actually have to shut down the Discord, and then all this kind of different condition and scenario makes it like a lot less accessible. I think a lot of time need to be a lot more like, not think about decentralization, but really make it more managing the projects properly. And then yeah, I think Web2 folks have a lot more experience to managing, and then you just have to integrate that culture to the Web2 people. I mean, the Web2 companies that way. I think that would be the first step.
Yeah, I think our time is up.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, guys.